Everybody, welcome back to Trades and Gains. This is the post-market flow show, a new series we will be starting here. And if you're new here, this is not technical analysis. This is where the money already went. We're not going to sit here and try to predict price and all this other stuff. The main goal of this show is to just tell you where is the money going and what does it actually mean. Tonight, we're going to go ahead and break it down the institutional options flow pulled straight from Investor Central Club's FlowScanner. These aren't guesses or opinions. These are actual executed trades. If you trade off headlines or candlesticks alone, well, unfortunately, you're already late. So quick housekeeping, make sure you go ahead and smash that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Make sure that you go ahead and check. I will do a daily PDF flow scanner that I will be releasing, and this stream is education at the end of the day. It is not financial advice. So before we dive in, quick reminder, flow is not direction, it's purely showing intent. The key rules you need to be reminded of: calls does not equal bullish automatically, puts don't equal bearish automatically, and expiration plus structure is greater than the color of the trade. We're watching who's hedging, who's pressing, and who's positioning for volatility. So big picture tonight, while we're seeing selective risk on, index hedging, and no real panic in the market right now, that combination tells me institutions expect movement and not necessarily collapsing. So our number one winner chicken dinner of our flow for tonight was coin. And this one is about as clean as you can get. We had 35.31 million in total overall, with all of that going into calls. There were 0 puts on these contracts. Now, this is one of the rare cases where flow is directional. Long dated calls, and there's no downside insurance. So we can see these are due for next week for the 280 calls. And this is while it's still at 249. So we're clearly expecting a move with Coinbase here within the next week. This isn't trading volatility whatsoever. This is what you call owning exposure, and they're going to own that exposure to the upside. Coin is being treated as a crypto beta vehicle, so if Bitcoin moves, coin is going to move even that much harder. Our next big money flow for the day, Palantir, boys. And this is another case of being bullish. We had 29 million in flow with 27.41 million coming into calls against only 2 million in puts. Now, one thing to take away from this is, let me go ahead and move that. One thing to take away from this, calls straight domination today. There were minimal puts and longer expiration dates because we're looking at the weekly on this. But this also looks like the ultimate delta hedge. This is the kind of flow you see when funds want upside, but they don't necessarily want to chase. Again, because these are so deep in the money, if these continue to move upward, they basically get paid out as if they own the stock, but instead they can just own the contracts. Palantir is gonna, at the end of the day, remain a core AI participation name, not a momentum gamble. Now, next up, we have SPY. Because this is where 9 times out of 10, it's not what it seems to be. So we had more puts coming into calls. We had 22 million in overall flow with only 6 million going into calls against 16 million in puts. And if you notice, a lot of these are long dated expiration. This isn't fear. It's just simple portfolio math. There's no front month panic, right? Like, these aren't hitting until February. And there's no crash hedges, meaning like we'd see something for this week or the 16th, and that would kind of be a hedge, you know? Funds are definitely long stocks right now, but they're just going ahead and buying some insurance in the short term, just in case. So hedging that doesn't always mean bearish, all right? It means that they're just being responsible and they're protecting their downside exposure. Next up, we have SLV. Now, this does look bearish on paper, but if you see the structure, the puts were dominating and calls, though, were the main thing that were coming through. So SLV, we had 22 million with 7 million in calls against 15 million in puts. Now, our most hit contract were these $70 calls. Again, this is a very short dated move. Some of these were bought in the money, and at most we're expecting a 1% move on this. Now, if we look at SLV's overall flow, which all we have to do is click on that, and then let's go to premiums, we can see that someone bought 12 million in $70 puts. Okay, so this doesn't mean that it's bearish necessarily, because at the end of the day, this is what I like to call an insurance bet, right? So think about SLV as being a macro shock absorber right now. That's how this is being framed in the market. Next up, we have AMD, and this is purely just protecting gains, right? It's defensive, but again, we don't really have panic because AI and that narrative is playing strong. And as much as I don't like AMD, they do have a spot in the AI infrastructure castle right now. And they do have a product that people will buy, okay? Now we're looking at 195 puts for March 20th of 2026. Again, we're seeing heavy puts. We're seeing no front month pressure. And a lot of times this is what happens after we see a big run, right? So institutions, think about it like this. They're just locking up those gains and they're not necessarily abandoning this trade. Now let's talk about KWeb. KWeb, we had 19 million in flow. All 19 million were in calls. All 19 million were in calls. The $40 call, we had some unusual hits. We had some very funky business going on today with KWeb, okay? It's pure optionality. Pure. Like, I want to get into this right now, okay? And these are also long dated. We're looking at August 21st of 2026. That's time. This is what you call low cost and a high payoff. Classic asymmetric exposure, okay? So that's what we're looking at on KWeb right now. Now, next up, we have NVDA. And with NVIDIA, it still hasn't changed. We saw 17 million. Jensen speaks tomorrow. So that could be bullish for NVIDIA with Jensen getting on stage and wanting to speak tomorrow. We have calls dominating puts at 10 million versus 6. And this is not trading NVIDIA. This is owning NVIDIA. NVIDIA is going to go ahead and remain the institutional anchor of the AI trade with the 190 calls due for this week, most likely because of CES. And some of these were bought when it was at 193. But we also had someone come back for some more, buy some more at 225 at 2:05 p.m. for those same 190 calls. And that was when it was at 187 after we saw a little bit of a sell-off. And finally, let's go ahead and talk about Tesla. Actually, we'll talk about Tesla and IWM. So for Tesla, we're seeing bullish sentiment, 15 million in flow, 12 million in calls against 2 million in puts. This isn't an investment at the end of the day, it's an instrument. The calls were dominating today, and event-driven expiration dates, if we look at these, 6/18/2026. Now, think about it like this. People aren't necessarily betting on the direction. They're betting on movement. These are for $800. This is a 75% expected move, and we saw it get hit over and over and over again. So do with that information as you will. Now, finally, for the homie DK, let's go ahead and talk about some IWM. Let's go ahead and talk about IWM. So we saw 15 million in flow, 1 million in calls against 13 million inputs, right? And small caps at the end of the day are always going to be that problem, right? These are repeated blocks that we saw for the 239s due for February 20th of 2026. The capital is staying concentrated, and it's not concentrating towards IWM until we get a rate cut. So there's no broad risk on until IWM participates in this rally, basically. So here's the big takeaway, right? Risk on, it's very selective right now. The index hedging is very much active. There's no crash positioning, and there's no volatility panic, right? This is a market preparing for movement, not necessarily disaster. So if you want this broken down ticker by ticker with bias, most hit contracts, and how to use the data, that's exactly what the FlowScanner Weekly PDF is for. It's under the Substack paywall. It will also be available if you're in Investor Central Club, and the link will be in the chat. This saves you hours of staring at tables and tells you what actually matters. Price tells you what happened, but flow is going to tell you what they're preparing for. I'm Max Pitts. This is Trades and Gains, and this was another FlowScanner Daily Recap. I'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure you join us over at Free Wi-Fi Radio, where we watch the flow from market open to market close on a daily basis. Hope you all have a great night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.